What did you say again?
I said a scam.
A scam. Okay.
Yeah, elaborate.
No, elaborate.
It's based off the assumption that most relationships are parasitic in nature.
Okay.
And that one person...
Is that a good assumption?
Yes.
Okay.
if we won't elaborate. No, but essentially it's like, so there's a few problems that I have with relationships. Not that I've ever been in one, but you could say this is cope. It probably is, but I'm going to give my take.
Okay.
Cope?
I can feel it from here.
You feel the cope?
Yeah, I can feel the cope from here.
What's cope?
It's coping.
Oh, you never... Yeah.
No, I thought he was trying to say cop. Sorry.
No.
Continue.
He's on copium right now.
Yeah,
gotcha.
inhaling
Continue.
a lot of copium.
Continue.
But anyway, so I think that like there's like, so one of the primary things, like even if it's a good relationship, right? Like you're now becoming reliant on this other person.
Yeah.
And let's say things go wrong and then like you now become single.
Yeah.
You are now no longer an independent human being. Which is actually like a pattern you see a lot. Because a lot of people when they come out of relationships, they just go, they're kind of looking at like the next thing, like what should they do now? Like who's the next person I should like get with or whatever. You know what I mean? Or they're sulking for like a long time. So they're basically like in a period of like sulking for a long time, and then they look for another relationship. And so then they never actually like kind of like develop their own like individual like ability to live on their own.
I see.
And that's what.
Okay, I was just about to ask if anyone wants to get in on that because I do have an opinion.
Okay.
But I'll wait until y'all get
You
to
sort
it.
of went back to what Jonathan said about like, is it worth getting into a relationship if it's going to
See
end?
the previous episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said like, I think I said last time that I think it's worth it because like the experience that you have there are always going to be more worthwhile than the actual outcome, even if it fails. But I think on the other hand, like the religious definition that people often say is like a good relationship is when, or like when someone loves another person, it's when they will the good of the other, right? And I think to have someone that wants the best for you and will do anything for you to become better, I can't see that as being like a non-rewarding experience. Like even if it doesn't end well, like let's say like one time I was out and about and this old lady had a conversation with me and my dad, and she was talking about how her husband had recently died, right? And she's been married to him for maybe like 50 years, right? So like she's like, you know, they're like one unit now, right? And now she can't afford to pay for the house. He was making most of the money. Now she has to move out on. She doesn't know how to.
Bro didn't leave it for her in his will?
No. Like they were still paying for the location.
Okay.
Well, I don't even think it's that. I think it's just like whatever like stuff that needs to go on around the house, like the heating, the water, because it was a massive house. Like he was like a doctor or something along those lines, right? So like she was like really like heavily reliant on him, right? And she really cared for him, right? And they had their thing, right? And it's like now she has to be on her own, and she was like, I'm scared to be alone. And like that was really sad like for me, because I was feeling sort of the same emotions, not from that, just the idea of being alone, which is like is very frightening to me, right? But like on the other hand, it was like, I bet if I asked her, if you knew this is how it was going to end up, where you don't know like where you're going to live now, you don't want to rely on your kids, you can't afford to have this house, now you're going to have to move to somewhere new, have to meet new people, you have to like do all these things that you're not comfortable doing, that you haven't done like by yourself for a long time, you haven't been all along. If I asked her, if you knew this is how it was going to end, would it still be worth it to have gone through those 50 years that you spent married to this guy? I guarantee you she'd say 100% of the time that the time she spent with her husband were like the best part, like some of the best parts of her life, because they had a bond that allowed them to each perpetuate becoming better people. Like people used to get married a lot younger because people wanted to grow up with their spouse. They wanted to be able to learn how to be an adult, what it meant to be human, what it meant to be a good person. And they did that by bouncing off each other, like by working with other people, because people are social creatures. Like even if you're not in a relationship, people are still looking for other people to help them. Like there's no one who's actually independent. There aren't independent people. Like people who do things by themselves still get help from other people because they rely on things that are made by other people. Like there are very few people who just do it all by themselves. I actually don't know any of them, but I think that most people, for the most part, are dependent on other people. So I can't see like, I can see how bad relationships would be a bad experience, but even bad experiences can teach you about how to find good ones, because then you know what to avoid. So that's my little 2 cents.
Ian, do you have anything to say or?
No, I think I agree with that.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just have points to add. Like, the lady had obviously a very good relationship. I do think like the relationships that Jaden's touching on are not necessarily like that lady's own. And I do get what you're saying about like relationships ending and then looking for people, because like when a relationship ends, speaking from personal experience, like it's just like there is a void that's there, you know, because you made space for somebody and they're not there anymore to fill that space. And like that's when you kind of have to like kind of be in control of yourself, kind of just note, okay, yeah, I feel kind of abandoned right now. Start to prevent yourself from doing things that you might regret later. What else did I want to say? I'm thinking about the book that came to mind, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. I did not read the whole book. Nonfiction is not my thing. I did not read the Cliff Notes. I read the first chapter, but I think it's kind of suitable for like first two chapters, or maybe first chapter, first two, whatever. It was
Did you
pretty
get through
useful.
2 habits, or were you still in 1 habit and you got 2
One
chapters?
habit, Ezekiel.
That's
One
not- you didn't
habit.
finish a full
Shut up,
habit.
man.
Yes, I did finish a full habit. Whatever. I think it's suitable for this though. What he was talking about were like the different levels. I can't get into everything because I can't remember, but he was going dependent, independent, and interdependent, right? So it's better to be an independent person than a dependent person. But people by nature rely on each other, and so it's best to be an interdependent person. He could have written the book. So whilst like there are relationships that I agree could be a scam, like people just get in for their own benefits and stuff like that,
Which is a large portion of them.
which might be a large portion of them at certain points in time. I think that relationships like I don't think that if you're a good person and you're getting in a relationship and it doesn't work out, that automatically means that relationships are a waste of time, because people go through hardship in life. Like there's like basically something that I tell myself all the time is like everybody goes through something. Like nobody really knows what people are suffering through, and a lot of times like the empathy that people lack is because people just see someone's efforts and they just see someone achieving. Not even they see someone's efforts, they see someone achieving, but they don't recognize that the efforts they put in to get to that point, or they don't recognize that the person is struggling with something maybe completely different from whatever they're struggling with. And so they just get angry, they get jealous, and they lash out at people, or they speak behind people's backs and stuff. I could really get into this. I don't think I should. We don't have enough time. But I won't say that relationships are like a waste of time, especially if you're trying to do the right thing. I just think that there's some people who are just very bad people, and if you're wasting people's time in a relationship, you should probably leave. But yeah, that's my opinion. Like people are built for interdependence.
People are built for relationship.
People are built for relationship, and so
Not necessarily
think
with
it's
people.
important.
Usually we say that about God. People are built for relationship with God.
I mean, to an extent, people are built for relationship to
Yes.
each other, so that we can, you know.
Yeah, but no,
Pass
that
it on.
saying is said.
Yeah. But yeah, what do you think? What do you think, Jaden?
What do I
Throwing it
think?
back to you. Throwing it
Wait,
back.
can I
Yeah.
just add one more?
Because-
thing? I'll just add one more.
No.
just one-
Okay, he said no.
just
He
one-
said the coach said no.
No.
Who said no?
We've
So,
been speaking
I
for a
was-
long time.
Yeah,
Like,
so
we
I
don't
was
have
being
much time.
I was being quiet, letting you guys say your piece. But so I like don't disagree, but I don't
Okay.
100% agree solely
Okay.
because the proportion of relationships that exist in the way that you guys described them is like extremely small.
I was agreeing with the ones that you were saying though.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause-
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But the issue is that like most relationships are like 75 to 80%, I would estimate, are even more probably, but like I'm being conservative, are like of the nature that like
Why being conservative? Be liberal. I'm sorry. Continue. I was just messing around.
You're in the wrong.
I was just messing around. I was just messing around. Continue.
aren't just not necessarily benefiting either person.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
No. So it's not
that's-
independent, dependent, or interdependent. It's just bad.
Yeah, well, no,
It's
because
not even
like when I
parasitic,
say
it's
when I
just
say
bad.
benefiting,
Yeah.
like no, because like
It's a whole
'Cause you-
other
you s-
category.
yeah, it's like it's just so
Just detrimental.
it's just I wouldn't say detrimental, but it's like it doesn't spring people forward. It just holds people back.
Mm.
You know what I mean? That's generally like the relationships I see. So
Mm.
if they're not like pushing one person down, then they're like holding both people back from like what they could be doing on their own, and they don't realize that because in the
Are you
short
basing
term,
this on evidence, like from the internet, or
No.
like just literal,
from
like just watching
observation.
observation
That's
for
crazy.
people I know.
That's crazy. I'm sorry.
Experimental data.
I'm sorry. I'm
But
sorry.
he was not the tester. He was
I was
just
not
the
the tester.
scientist.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but like and that's like that's problematic. I don't know. I just see that as like problematic. I just see it's like the likelihood that you find someone who is like not like so self-obsessed to like only focus
Self-absorbed, yeah.
self-absorbed and also like short-sighted, because a lot of people like The problem is that people are short-sighted and they want things that are like nice in the short term, which is like
Yeah,
I-
people want pleasure
Yeah.
instead of seeking happiness. Those are two
yeah,
very
exactly,
different things.
exactly. And so like in
Hedonistic.
seeking that pleasure, you get into relationships that provide that short-term pleasure, but then like in the long term, it doesn't actually benefit you in like
Yeah.
many ways. Sure,
Mhm.
you gain things from them, but that doesn't mean that like you gaining those things would be better than if you were like to be like alone and like
I think
focus on things that you.
that's sort of a fundamental thing that I think a lot of people nowadays miss, or I guess people from all time. I think like a key component, like in order to like love another person, and like not just like in terms of like a relationship, in terms of like romantic, but to like love a family member, love a friend. In order to do that, that requires a certain amount of sacrifice. Like love is equivalent to sacrifice. Like in order
Work.
to love
Work.
someone, you have to put in work, as Aiden said, right? Like in order to like that is what like love is. It's all about sacrifice. And the interesting about love too, and like 90 or like how it's supposed to be, is that love is not something that you can like win over. It's not something that you could like, okay, I'm gonna do like A, B, C, D. I'm gonna like write out this project. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna give it to them, and then that's what takes. Like, there's a certain threshold I have to reach, and then like I have to give them like this much money, and then to like that's not really how like love works. Love is something that's like freely given. It's something that's gifted to you, right? And the reason why people often feel unworthy of it is because when people give it to them, they often feel like, what did I like? What is my worth equivalent to get this free gift from someone? Because they chose to give this to me, and so.
And they're low-key right.
And you could think that's right, but the thing is I think there's like, because of its free gifted nature and its sacrificial nature, it's very important to really think about like who you give it out to. And I think oftentimes people just go about their day and they're like, oh, I want to be in a relationship, I want to do this, and then they jump into things, right? Well, they don't really think about what's really important. Like when you have any kind of relationship, business relationship, a romantic relationship, a relationship with a family member, like friendship relationships, all of these things are founded upon baseline values. Like people are supposed to share values, but instead people share like things that they're interested in, right? They're like, oh, I'm like interested in like, you know, I don't know, hooking up or something like that, and then they link up together like that. But it's I think it's more about.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it's really more about like
It's
people
just
should focus
linking
on
up by hooking up and becoming friends. That one's kind of funny. But
Yeah,
continue.
it's really about like you if you can't share ideologies and you can't share values, if you don't have that at the base level, it's never gonna work out. Because when it comes to push comes to shove, and you have to make a decision, right? Someone's having a hard time, and we need to make a choice. Like this is what we have to do. You want that you're on the same page. You may have different solutions, but at least you can say like, we're going in this direction. We're going to the right. I don't know how we're gonna go this way to the right, but we're going this way. If one person wants to go right and the other person's going left, like completely opposite of what you want, it's not gonna work out. It's gonna be too much tension.
Even when somebody's going right and somebody's going like this, it still feels kind of frustrating.
Yeah, so it's like if you're like, people can gain interest over time. You can learn to have the same interest as someone that you love, right? Like say you don't like to dance, right? But then your partner really likes to dance, and they say, well, let's take a dancing class together. You may not like it at first, but you say, I'll learn because I care.
you. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. It sounded like
you
you could
can-
raise a line. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can learn to care about their interests. You can learn to do those things. You can't learn how to have the same values and ideologies. 'Cause that's what people are built off of. So that's my little spiel about that. I think it's like the reason why these things happen is just because people, as you said, are very short-sighted. They're like, oh, I want this thing now, but they don't think about like, what does it mean to actually be happy? What does it mean to love? What does it mean to have a relationship? And if people focused on those things, it still may not work out. But I think that the relationships that did happen would be far more fruitful, which is the word I used. Yeah, you see how I connected it. You know how it is. I'm just clean with it, you know,
Cyclical.
yeah,
Cyclical.
yeah,
I respect
you know
it.
how
I
is, you know
respect
how
it.